Democracy, the grand ideal of freedom and self-rule. But what if I told you that one of history's greatest thinkers, Socrates, absolutely despised it? His critique wasn't just philosophical, it was personal. After all, it was democracy that sentenced him to death. But why? What did Socrates see in democracy that made him fear it? Let's break it down. Socrates wasn't against fairness. His issue was who made the decisions. Athenian democracy allowed every free male citizen to vote, regardless of their knowledge or expertise. To Socrates, this was madness. He compared governance to steering a ship. Would you entrust the decision of who should pilot a ship to just anyone, or would you prefer someone trained in navigation? Politics, he argued, requires wisdom, just as sailing involves skill. Yet, democracy handed power to the uninformed masses, who were easily swayed by rhetoric and emotion rather than reason. Socrates feared that democracy wasn't ruled by the people. It was ruled by those who could manipulate the people. He warned about the dangers of demagogues, leaders who appeal to emotions rather than reason. Plato, his most famous student, recorded Socrates' concerns in the Republic. When an election is held, the candidates are not necessarily the wisest, but those who are best at persuading the masses. Sound familiar? Even today, politics is often dominated by those who craft the best soundbites, not those with the best policies. The greatest irony? Democracy itself sentenced Socrates to death. In 399 BCE, he was accused of corrupting the youth and impiety. His fate was decided by a public vote, and by a narrow margin, the democratic jury sentenced him to drink hemlock. In his final moments, he accepted his fate, stating, "To fear death is to think oneself wise when one is not. No one knows what comes after, so why fear what we do not know?" His execution was a chilling example of what happens when public emotion overrides reason. His crime? Asking too many questions. So, was Socrates right? Is democracy doomed to be ruled by the loudest voices rather than the wisest minds? Even today, we see the same problems. Politicians winning through charisma rather than competence, misinformation spreading like wildfire, and public opinion shaped more by emotions than critical thinking. But democracy has evolved. We have checks and balances, constitutions, and education systems that aim to counteract the very issues Socrates feared. The real question is, are we doing enough? Socrates may have despised democracy, but his critiques force us to think critically about how we govern ourselves. The challenge isn't just about choosing leaders, it's about educating citizens. What do you think? Is democracy the best system, or was Socrates right to be skeptical? Let's discuss this in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and check out my video on Plato's ideal philosopher-king society. See you next time.